Just look at that. What has been shared on Channel 3 and Atlas, and it's been good. Well, it's surprising. There are several important matters, but the comparisons between, for example, Oumuamua and other comets have been surprisingly different. And now, more and more information is starting to come out where you ask yourself, what are they hiding here, right? This is your appreciation. Photographed by the astrophotographer Ray No, an astrophotographer who lives in Austin. Yes, who captured this amazing image of Comet 3 and Atlas on November 23, 2025. Here's another very interesting image of Comet 3 and Atlas by Paul Crax. Yes, that's also a very interesting image. It's one of the strangest views of 3 and Atlas as it approaches Earth, which will be on December 19 when it's at its closest point. The Draft 3 telescope, a relatively simple telescope, managed to capture this image, which is also quite interesting, right? Several images have surprised us today. Well, let's leave this one on the screen while we talk. Some points that draw attention at this moment. And that would show not just one, but several of the strangest oddities. An anomaly was detected and confirmed. That's its nature. An interstellar object. That would be one of the most interesting points. But beyond that, because there have been 3 objects, not Oumuamua, Borisov, and this one. Well, let's make a comparison between Borisov and what Atlas is. 3 and 1, right? Here's where it gets interesting. Where? Normally, the structure of a comet behaves as follows. If the sun comes in from this side and the coma appears on this other side, but that's the normal comet. The sun is on one side, the tail comes out the other. That's the key feature. Here exactly the opposite happens. The sun points from this side and the tail comes out on that side. Like it wants to move away, right? But beyond that, notice the most curious and puzzling thing. Let's say, yes, mathematical impossibilities. Now we reach some interesting points to compare with Oumuamua. If what we're witnessing isn't simply the passing of a space rock, but rather we're seeing behavior that defies random celestial mechanics. Meanwhile, National Aeronautics and Space Administration stance, reaffirmed on November 19th, insists on classifying 3I Borisov as a natural comet. The hard data shows something else, not hypotheses or anything like that, but the hard data. The tail directed toward the sun, which they call the anti-tail, doesn't fit with ice evaporation, but rather resembles more of a plasma shield or a particle beam to mitigate impacts. Another notable point is the object timing its arrival to avoid detection by sensors on Earth, Mars, and Venus during its perihelion. Exactly. Did it make things more uncomfortable for itself? This suggests a 0.00004% possibility. Another is the gravitational edge, which is also extremely rare to find. The route was changed to be located exactly. Another is the gravitational edge, which is extremely rare to have been located. Another one is also extremely rare to have been located. The route was changed to be located. Another is the gravitational edge. The route was changed to be located. If you wanted to deploy probes or satellites in the outer solar system without spending energy, that's the exact place and the exact moment where you would put yourself. Let's say from the aerospace point of view. You'd want to deploy probes from an aerospace point of view. You'd want to deploy probes, satellites, spending is from the aerospace point of view. It's even more surprising, and here are some points. For example, the mass of Oumuamua, let's say, in terms of size. He says this one is different from Mua. The 3IATLAS is 1,000,000 times more massive. It's not, or it doesn't behave like space debris or like a comet, which is made of pieces of ice and things like that. Instead, it behaves like a structure. They say it's not possible, or up until now, there's never been a comet with that level of massiveness. You say 1,000,000 times more massive. First comparison, what do you think? Incredible. Another is the slight acceleration without a visible tail that Mua has, and in this case, Mua. In other words, the first interstellar comet had a chaotic rotation, what they call tumbling. It keeps forming and unforming, creating its own chaos. The acceleration of the 3IATLAS case is non-gravitational and it has surprising stability. I mean, it's not out of control. And what if while the Mua was tumbling, the 3 was the 3? It has kept its integrity and orientation so far. That may change, but that's how it is now. Another one, the Moa's smoke had a tail, basically invisible. It was possibly gas and dust. Gas without dust, he says, but there was nothing. There was no tail. In the case of Atlas 3, the non-gravitational acceleration is strong and stable. And what if while the Moa smoke was tumbling, while the Moa smoke had a tail that didn't shine, the 3 and the 3, and does the object shine in front? Stop. Speaking like this about possibilities, you say, well, this is an unusual behavior if we think of it as something natural. He says it's composition. Apart from all this, it's about what it emits, what it releases. Yes, if it's a plume, if this thing that's coming out, Enrique Nicol says in the Moa smoke it was dust. In this case it was, well, still a plume rich in nickel, he says. I mean, the composition seems more metallurgical, not natural. Another important point as well, and these 4 comparisons seem very interesting to me. One is the smoke's close passage to the sun at Moa. It generated few reactions. In the case of 13-3, it's something we haven't really talked about here, but we mentioned it at the beginning. When it happened before entering the sun, it slowed down or had a stop, do you remember? Did it stop before passing the sun? And then it passed the perihelion, that is when it gets close to the sun and a little further ahead of the perihelion. A few days later, it accelerated. It first slowed approaching the sun, then gained that speed back after passing it. The 3IATLAS appears to be seeking orbital insertion. Unlike the Moa smoke which just passed by. Bouncing around, as they say, right? This topic, right? Or what worries people in the analyses, they say it's whatever this is, right? The analysts say it's not just that the 3IATLAS is strange, but it has also fixed the vulnerabilities of the smoke. MOA, is it bigger? Is it faster? Is it harder due to the nickel alloy? And it navigates with an apparent defined purpose in the Jovian system. So, the 3IATLAS, the Comet, 3IATLAS, let's just say it. It seems to make sense. Everything he does in the smoke to Moa, it had oddities. But most of them, well, without much sense. Here it has many oddities, but besides that, all those oddities apparently have a meaning, right? He says, one of the disturbing facts is that it shows the jet toward the sun, which is not an optical illusion and has been proven to be a beam of light or particles that could be used to mitigate the risk of micrometeoroids at a relative speed of 60 kilometers per second. We're talking about the object seeming to have its own fog lights, so to speak. Yes. I mean, as if it had the ability to do something more. Maybe, but well, here we're talking about it no longer being an anomaly, right? There were things that still weren't confirmed. For example, the acceleration issue has now been confirmed. The anticona issue has also been confirmed. The things that seemed more exotic or stranger have been getting confirmed. We'll pay attention to what comes next. There are also a series of interesting facts regarding how space agencies are behaving. For example, what's happening is what they call a coordinated silence. National Aeronautics and Space Administration and China have simply been removing images. They haven't been sharing all the material. There are even photographs that they've already said they won't release until April, and for others they haven't given a date yet. Why until then? Why until others? I mean, why are they keeping the images, the best images, and saying they'll release them in April or they'll release them another year? That's totally unusual. Several agencies, including Pakistan, are known to have withheld information. For example, I mean, there are already many agencies, there's a lot of data that have simply been opposed to being disclosed. At this point, we should have had what they called the avalanche of information, but so far, nothing. No. We say let the data speak. Well, yes, but what if they don't give you the data? What happens then? No, that's the problem there. And when they do give you the data, they use selective data to explain what everyone already knows. That it's interstellar, for example, things like that, that it's very bright, things like that. But what's interesting, the data, well, isn't coming out as it theoretically should. But anyway, let's wait and see. And the best images so far have basically been published by astrophotographers, as they're called. Amateurs, basically, right? With telescopes, some slightly larger than others, but nothing professional or observatory grade. That's also super interesting. The topic is taking turns that honestly have really surprised me. At this point, I expected to say, well, there it is, 100% natural, we already have the data. Perfect. Let's move on to other matters. And as more time goes by, things just get stranger, right? So, well, let's keep an eye on this matter, on this comet. And, well, let it be whatever it is, but let them say it. Let them say it with data, with all that excess information they claim to have. Well, let them give us everything, right? Hopefully it happens soon. In the meantime, I see how the astronomers and the physicists are starting to have their clashes too. It's very interesting here, so I'll keep following the topic and we'll keep discussing it. Let's move on to other matters, other topics that are also very interesting.